So there's a lady played by Demi Moore. She is turning 50. She's real sad about it because she's like, oh no, my youth, and I'm no longer valued as a lady. As though she wasn't used to that. I mean, come on, you're 50. You stopped being valued at 25. How have you not had time to, oh God, I'm projecting my own feelings. But she's 50 and she, basically finds out about this thing called the substance. And they're like, hey, do you want a younger, sexier Margaret Qualley version of yourself? We can make that happen with this mysterious drug that you're going to go to a dark alleyway alone and go into a dingy room and then find yourself in a really stark white room. And there's going to be some drugs and you should put those in your system. Trust us. It's a good idea. And Demi Moore, aka Elizabeth Sparkle, was like, fuck yeah, that sounds great. Anything's better than being 50. So she goes, she picks up the drug. It's all very medical and it's all the cards say like, take this first, do this. And there are some rules. And that is you inject yourself once and dispose of the drug. Then you, there are some, IV bags for keeping your matrix is called the main, person, and your other is the other person, keeping them alive for a week because every week you have to switch. No exceptions, and you also have to stabilize every day. And what does that mean? We'll get into it. I will say that given those instructions, the way that Elizabeth Sparkle and her counterpart Sue realize what they have to do with these medical instruments is amazing because there's no instruction saying you have to use this tourniquet and inject this directly into your vein. I would have just like shot myself in the arm like a normal. Would that have been acceptable? Would it have still worked? Probably not, because otherwise they wouldn't have included the tourniquet. Later on, when Margaret Qualley is like, Sue is like, oh, I have to inject this into her spinal column and withdraw the spinal fluid. How the fuck did you make that connection? I never would have thought of that. Like, that's almost impressive that you have such good medical training. Have you watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy? Did you grow up watching ER every Thursday like I did, and that's how you're qualified to do essentially a spinal tap? Got a lot of questions there. But Elizabeth Sparkle, she injects herself and then she's like, well, that didn't work, but it did because she falls and bashes her face on the bathroom floor, and then stuff starts happening under her skin and she's clearly feeling it all. And then her spine rips open and another person emerges, and hey, it's Sue, which I want to know why that name was chosen, because this is the younger, sexier version of her, and Sue is not a name that screams like I would expect like her to be like, I'm Carmen, like something like that. And I do want to know why Sue, but there's also like a Peggy Sue or Mary Sue or whatever that narrative structure maybe has something to do with that. I do have questions. Why Sue? Because they put a lot of emphasis on Sue. The first time she says it, it's just her mouth repeating it over and over and over again. Why Sue? Sue emerges and she's like, holy shit, I'm hot now. Have you seen my butt? Yes, we have. And we're about to see it a whole lot. I gotta say, like the two actresses, Demi and Margaret, there are some, I know that they're trying to emphasize the difference between these two bodies by showing us like how young and toned Sue is, but like Demi Moore also looks fantastic. So they have to then really amp up Margaret Qualley's appearance to be like, yeah, we know you think she's fantastic, but have you seen this? And they go all out and like, just God bless you, ladies. Thank you so much. You both are fantastic and this movie's great and I adore you both. So Margaret Qualley, aka Sue, emerges and then she goes, she gives Elizabeth Sparkle the Matrix, the IV bag full of fluids, and then leaves her there for a week naked on the bathroom floor. Just like me after a long night of drinking. Am I right? Please just give me an IV bag and leave me here until I need to take over control of myself. So Sue goes, she gets Elizabeth Sparkle's old job. She's young, she's vivacious, she's having fun. She comes back, she switches with Elizabeth Sparkle, and then now Elizabeth is the main character once more. And here's why she should have asked some questions, because she seems to like be okay with this, but I would be pissed and asking for my money back. Even though she is a younger, sexier version of herself, it doesn't seem she has the memories of being a young, sexier version of herself, because these two, when they switch off and on, they are surprised by things that have happened. And they're like, how could you trash the apartment with alcohol? How could you trash the apartment with chicken? You know, like they are very surprised. So it's like, what does Elizabeth Sparkle actually get out of this? But then it's kind of revealed, like, she just wants to put a better version of herself out there. And like, fine, but I would be so pissed if I was like, I just have to take long naps and I wake up and I'm still just me. Like, what's the fucking point? I could just sadly watch the TV on my week off, like, no matter what. It doesn't make a difference. So I have some questions about that, but I look past it because I guess that's just fine. Some stuff goes on, blah, 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 blah. Sue decides that she likes being Sue and she's going to be Sue a little bit longer. So she takes a little bit more of, Elizabeth Sparkle's spinal fluid to stabilize herself. And keeps the body a little longer than a week. Elizabeth Sparkle now has taken over again, and she realizes she has one really old finger, just a single one, not like a hand in my case that seems to be wrinklier than she recalls. No, just one really old, witchy, haggy finger that, like, if it offered Snow White an apple, it would make a lot of sense. It's that kind of finger. And she calls the complaints department, and the guy, he doesn't care. He doesn't get paid enough to deal with this. And he's like, what has been taken cannot be untaken, or whatever the fuck it is. And it turns out that anytime Sue decides to keep the body a little bit longer, this is just going to happen to Elizabeth, and she's got to fucking deal with it. But she does need to remember that they are one. They are not two separate people. There is no she. There is only... There's only the one. So there's some stuff that happens, causes conflicts, blah, 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 blah. Sue starts taking the body and does not give the body back. And then after a while, she goes to stabilize, withdraws some spinal fluid from Elizabeth Sparkle, and it is gross. I mean, spinal fluid, already pretty gross, but this is even grosser spinal fluid, if you can imagine. So she calls the complaint line, and the dude's like, ladies, you got to work this out. But in order to fix your problem, you just need to switch back. And she's like, oh God, because that means now a very, 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 very old Elizabeth Sparkle has to be in control for a while. And God, she's mad. She's really mad in the most appropriate kind of way. Because she's like, maybe I should have just stayed the way I was, but no, I want to terminate. I'm going to trot my way down to this scary alley. I'm going to get the termination medication. She comes back to terminate Sue and then changes her mind midway through because something like she's the best part of her, Sue is, so she doesn't want to kill her. And then she tries to wake her up by giving her some blood transfusion in the way that's how they switch. And then now they're both awake. Now Sue's pissed because how dare Elizabeth try to kill her? A fight ensues, and Sue, I did there, didn't mean to. And then Sue kills Elizabeth Sparkle and then goes to host her New Year's Eve show, where it turns out she's now falling apart because she killed herself. And her teeth, she's ripping them out in a bathroom. I had a hard time with that. An ear falls off. A fingernail comes off. Like, she's falling apart. And she gets this great idea. Margaret Qualley, gorgeous Margaret Qualley, best part of Death Stranding, I am going to go get an even better version of myself, which, God, a better version of Margaret Qualley? Is it even possible? I was so excited. I was sitting there and like, yes, please give me a better version of Margaret Qualley. What does this golden being look like? Will I become crazy when I feast my eyes upon them? Because there's no way I can even fathom a more beautiful person than Margaret Qualley. And then what emerges? She decides to use the vial of stuff that was supposed to be disposed after one opening. And oh man, if you have been severely wanting some intense body horror, this filled like the 20 years of body horror that we've been missing, 30 years, like ever since Society, we have not seen something. We're like The Thing. Like, we have not seen this amalgamation of body parts. This is very much like Color Out of Space alpaca scene of just like, what the fuck? The mom, okay, we won't spoil Color Out of Space, but like, if you want some ooey gooiness, this delivers. And then it's like, this thing is named Eliza Sue, and now it has glued Elizabeth Sparkle's picture to its own face. It put on Sue's gown for the New Year's Eve show. Demi Moore is stuck on its back in a perpetual scream that is horrifying. It's gonna go host the New Year's Eve show. I should maybe say her, because I'm assuming if Sue and Elizabeth were women, Eliza Sue. So I guess she goes to host the New Year's Eve show. And it does not go well. People realize there are some weird things. This does not look like the Sue. Sue, have you, I mean this politely, have you put on a little weight? Have you maybe grown some arms? Also, you do have one tit out. I don't know if you know that, but it is out, and this is live TV. So we do need you to tuck that back in. Everybody freaks out. The lady freaks out. She just wanted to host the New Year's Eve show. Everybody in the audience is panicking. Somebody, if I recall, somebody like tries to like chop off an arm or something of the creature. And the woman, dear God, see, even I, if she's not up to my beauty standards, even I cannot recognize Eliza Sue as a beautiful woman. She seemed like she had a great personality, at least. But so she just starts spraying blood everywhere, and she goes running from the theater. It's a whole ooey-gooey-ness, and then she falls onto the pavement and breaks into a million pieces. And you think, Elizabeth Sue and Eliza Sue are all now free from this situation they've put themselves in. But not quite yet, because now Demi Moore's face that has been plastered on the back of Eliza Sue and stuck in a perpetual scream, unable to close her mouth, now has become what I can only describe as a flesh starfish, a starflesh. And she is now just shimmying her way over to her Hollywood star as just a face and not even quite tentacles, appendages. And she just goes over and she goes to her star on the Hollywood Boulevard as just a face. And then she has her final rest. And then she becomes a bunch of liquid that is then swept up, and all that remains is this cracked star that was once Elizabeth Sparkle. The substance.